9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. This is Chip Chat. Welcome to Chip Chat, everybody. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told them.
All right. We've got stuff. This is going to be a complicated and pretty deep show. Fortunately, we don't have a guest for.
Maybe fortunate. Like, what would be here at 3 o'clock if we had a guest?
Yeah. We're going to talk about the news, which is pretty grim at the moment, depending on what thing you're looking at. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to make that funny. We're going to try, but might not happen tonight. Not that we're ever funny. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we're not
That's
funny.
The trick of it.
Maybe the problem is that we're not funny.
Yeah.
And if we were funnier, the world wouldn't be this way. But
Putting
before
the
we
into salad dressing.
There you go. That's funny. But before we discuss the news of the world, we need to make mention of news here at the network. Two of our radio brothers, Tone from Real Talk Uncensored, which is on Monday nights, and Bam of Bam's Good Grow Show, which is on Friday nights, and his other show, Seductive Tales and Slow Jams. Both, each individually, lost a daughter this week. And that's rough. Both have families that are torn apart, and all of us feel this terrible tragedy. We'll post links if you want to support or, about memorial services and things like that for the families. But, I'm a father. I have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And I'm not at the age yet where, I'm going to know a lot of people who have lost children. Or if they have, it's like a medical thing that happened or something like that. Not a lot of, terrible tragedy stories yet, fortunately. But, we're approaching that. And both of the fellas here are, a touch older than me. And, both of them have experienced the most painful idea you could imagine. So I was deeply affected. I am deeply affected by this. And I feel really sad. And I don't know what else to say about that.
No, I think that's it's more than reasonable to feel that way, and it's because there's kind of like a duality of it. Is like, right, these are people that we love and right are part of this network, and it's like you feel that pain. You don't feel, but you're like almost empathize and feel the pain for them. And then you can't help but just like, if you have a kid and you have a child, whenever like that, it's almost hard to try, like, for your mind not to drift. Yeah. And then that ties together. And it's like, you almost don't even have words, like, for the individuals who are going through this, because it's like you almost can't imagine, but you start imagining.
You imagine it immediately.
Yeah.
And you what happens is, or at least to me, is you instantly feel it as if it had happened to you.
Yeah.
Because when they say it, you hadn't thought of it, and then as soon as they say it, you can't not think of it. And then you are playing it out, whether you mean to or not. It happens in your head, and then you're just heartbroken, and you're heartbroken with them.
Yeah,
because it isn't you.
It is. You're right.
But that's how human beings feel each other's pain, is because we can see the same thing that happened to our friend happening to us.
Right, and that becomes the reality of
that becomes the way that you experience it, because you experience it as if it happened to you, unless you're some sort of psychopath.
Right.
But that's
like, if that doesn't hit you in a way where it's almost like crippling, I don't know what else.
Yeah. If it doesn't knock you down, there's probably something really wrong with you, which I guess is good because I've been worried that I'm a psychopath for a long time. And then it turns out I'm not. I'm a deeply empathic person, maybe too much so that I feel for things that have nothing to do with me. And then it turns me into a crazy person. But
yeah, I
this is rough, dude.
Yeah.
And to have it back to back.
Yeah, that's...
You know, there's no recovery time. There's no, like, ability to sort of right the ship before you get hit with another wave.
Yeah, and... You can't, again, it's, we're in radio, and, like, our whole thing is about having words, but, like, I don't have many words outside of, like, I hope that there's a way to, again, somehow, like, get beyond like the grief at a point, but right now all you should be doing is feeling, right? Yeah. And like you should be, and I think like that's like the feeling piece right here, and that feeling I would just assume straight despair is like that's like a natural feeling, and I also hope as well too, like obviously it's the network family here, but like I hope that there's like support group, because like I think that's very important in times like this as well too.
Yeah,
like,
just have somebody to come sit with them.
Yeah,
sit with that family. Like if you know somebody's going through loss, like you can offer to bring them food. That I don't know if it's everybody does that, but certainly in Jewish culture, our first reaction is to feed them. But also, we're taught anyway about going to sit shiva with the family. You go and sit there with them. You don't do anything. You don't say anything. You don't play cards. You don't do nothing like that. You're just there to be there in the same place.
Yeah.
And there is this idea that if there are many people sitting there with the family, that spreads the load. Right. And that we can all help lift a little. So, you know, if that's an opportunity, if the family's willing to have that, I mean, that's a thing that you can do. But other than that, man, I just don't know what to feel about that.
Yeah. And it's like we think of like our brothers on this like that because that we know, but then like there's an extension that we just don't even know. So like to them as well too, like
yeah, and people
by way of like I don't know, it's like that's a piece as well too, because like there's like we don't have any comprehension of like how deep that goes.
You don't know how many people one person touches. You know? So,
yeah, that's just a brutal, like, back-to-back.
It's tough.
Sledgehammer to the head.
Yeah. So we want to send our love.
Yes.
I mean, I want to be very clear what we're here to do is that Tone and Bam, both, we love you both, and, you know, sending love to your families and any other support that we can.
Yeah.
You know, if you just want a hug or play Mario Kart, whatever. Like, whatever you need, we're here. So,
or or if you need to not be here, right, and move, and like you don't like, that's a thing as well too. Because I know sometimes folks are just like, I can't
be in the same place where this happened.
I just can't even. Don't want to.
Yeah.
So
that's totally
people
acceptable.
are allowed to grieve however it works best for them.
Right.
And
we're here to just be whatever you need. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, with that being said, no silly word game or anything like that. We're just going to take a quick break and come back with the first half of the show. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping?
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah. All right, what's popping, yeah?
So I went back and listened to last week's show to make sure, what some of the details were. The closest we got was a reference to defenestration off of the top of the Washington Monument. So, all right. We're going to read this thing that I wrote because that's kind of how this works. Just so everybody knows, I got a lot of messages on Saturday night, and including from you fellas. and they were all sort of mostly the same thing. So I posted a picture of myself in my own kitchen on Facebook with a timestamp. If you don't know why by now,
we can leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. One of the things that this show does is that it helps me sort out my thoughts because it forces me to write them down into something cohesive enough to read on the air. I have a lot of thoughts about the shooting that took place over the weekend in Butler, Pennsylvania. A lone gunman using a .556 chambered AR-15 shot at Donald Trump from a little under 150 yards, which is really, really close with that kind of a rifle and a scope. By many accounts, this was a failure of security, our laws, and the people who were assigned to protect the life of Trump. There was a casualty, and while Trump survives, one of his fervent supporters is dead, and several others are wounded. The violence perpetrated against Trump and his campaign is not yet explained, as we still have no definitive motive from the shooter. The internet runs rampant with conspiracy and conjecture, some of which may be based on shreds of evidence, others invented out of whole cloth. It's important not to be swept up in those conspiracies and let the investigation run to the end of its course. And crucially to that, we're not going to do any of the, well, it could have been this, it could have been that. I know what the shooter was thinking. No, you don't. We don't. Nobody knows.
No.
There's lots of possibilities. So many possibilities that even talking about them might really throw things off. Yeah. So don't do that. Let the FBI work. It is also important to confront what happened to us as a country with clear eyes and rational thought and mind. To be clear, we have never called for someone to act violently to settle political differences, but we have and will continue to speak the truth that Donald Trump and his MAGA movement are a direct, violent, and dangerous threat to democracy. Nobody is supposed to interpret that as a call to violent action. Labeling the threat is about reminding people why their vote matters and why it's critical that supporters of open, free, and fair elections put aside any and all concerns and unite behind the Democratic nominee, whoever that is. And tonight, it's getting increasingly chaotic. A man is dead. A former president is wounded. Neither of those facts alone change anything about who those people are or were. Just because someone is dead or the recipient of violence does not make them automatically good people. Bad, dangerous, and racist people are sometimes the recipients of violence. We would prefer that nobody suffers. At times, consequences are made by the very people who then experience those consequences. Donald Trump is a threat, a promulgator of violence, a fan of the fire of political unrest, and actually attacks this country all the time. That he may have been the recipient of that which he created is not a tragedy, it is a consequence, and there is a difference. The man who died supposedly shielding his family as the shots rang out over the fairgrounds that day, was a volunteer firefighter and by many accounts a brave person. He saw his life as one of service and help. He saw himself as one of the good guys. He also was attending a Trump rally and, as we will discuss later, seemed comfortable, at least on social media, with supporting violence against others, many of which he would never come into direct contact with. You know, if you are somebody who has dedicated your life to helping other people and saving their lives, to engage with somebody who is directly speaking about rounding up and deporting children, those two things cannot coexist unless you are bifurcating your mind in a very, very profound way.
No, they can easily coexist because they don't look. It's who they look at as people.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so,
right. Okay.
yeah,
well,
that's how.
That's how. Right. Anyway, the man who got shot was not someone who was a tepid or curious attendee of the Trump rally just to see what it was. This was someone who was a hardcore supporter of the type of violent rhetoric that Trump consistently unleashes on immigrants, women, Palestinians, Jewish people, and any and all of those who he calls vermin. There you go. Good book. Just because someone dies doesn't absolve them of their deeply held beliefs. It is possible to be sad that a family is missing their father and husband and also acknowledge that he was a participant in a violent culture that could have led exactly to these consequences. On this show, we have often talked about the wish that something drastic would happen to those who seem unaware of their behavior's outcomes as it relates to others. Sam Alito and John Roberts disregarded the harm caused by granting blanket immunity to a president. They didn't seem to acknowledge or comprehend that fact through the legal argument process. So if a new thing of their own making happened and they found it unpleasant, that is their consequence. It's not really possible for me personally to feel sorry for Trump in this instance. I can feel worried, I do feel worried, that the Secret Service failed so spectacularly at their jobs. I can feel worried that the ease of availability of these kinds of weapons makes so many shootings so much more likely, this one included. I can feel shame at the glee that I felt when it first flashed across my phone. Trump shot.
You're mad.
I'm not.
You're
I'm not. But I'm not.
I know. Okay. I continue. I mean, you're honest. That's honest.
Yeah.
That's very honest. Glee is kind of crazy.
I don't have a better word for it. I mean, I smiled.
Wow.
Because I was like, you know, and then I was, you know, what's the surprise face, whatever. I was like, surprise face. But Trump and his supporters are the people who made that gun so easily available. Trump and his supporters are the ones who speak in violent rhetoric and push ads in which they shoot at their opponents. They shot a beer, for fuck's sake, because they wanted to shoot at the transgender person that they objected to being the spokesperson for the beer. That they feel some of their own medicine doesn't exactly engender sympathy, and I'm using engender for a reason. Okay. I don't pretend to know what this means for our election or our country. So much depends on the motives of the shooter, which we can only speculate at currently. But in this climate, the actual motives may not really matter. The Trumpistas have already deemed this a miracle. They've turned this into the center of their weird religio-ethnic cult that seems hell-bent on taking this country by force. Now, even more fervently, they speak of Trump as a divine messianic figure, as Jesus himself. The die is cast. We can now only focus on what we can do to defeat this dangerous cult. There you go.
Throughout, what is it? All right, so January 6th, I was asleep. I woke up to that. This, I was also taking a nice nap. I feel like the Nationals had just came back, and who did they beat? Who did they beat on? It was in Milwaukee. I think I was watching that, and I was like, all right, time to take a nap. It's Saturday. I woke up and I was to that news, and I didn't have there's no glee that can come from that, because if you have it, or like, and I've talked to a lot of people or friends of mine who obviously despise him, right? I despise former President Trump. But if you believe in like the whole concept of like the nation state, right? Which that's a whole different discussion where I could be like, that's a crock of shit, right? That we just kind of create, right? And it's not a real thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's a story we tell ourselves. But if you want to believe into the story, you almost can't, like, I said this about Haiti as well, too, when their president was assassinated. And I was like, it's not good for the story when this happens, right? And this is I think one of the troubling things that I heard in the coverage on this was like, oh, this doesn't happen here.
Yes, it does.
And Biden corrected
What?
that. But his initial statements was like, yo, this doesn't happen. And I was like, wait, we're famous for that.
Yeah.
We're legitimately famous as a nation, like, for doing this.
For shooting at presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But for recovering from it too.
And that's the thing. It's almost because, because that ties into a lot of things, right? It ties into our Constitution and the Second Amendment.
We're a stable, government where the act of violence against a head of state is shocking, and that it usually causes the country to unite.
Yeah.
But this is the first time since Lincoln was shot that the person who is shot at is that divisive a figure.
Yeah.
You see, when Kennedy got shot, there were people who were fervently opposed to him, but not that many. It was Kennedy was a very popular president.
Yeah.
And people who did have differences with him could easily look past that because the differences were small.
Yeah.
Obviously Lincoln had an entire half of the country opposed to him.
Yeah.
But in his case, they were opposed to him because of his cause that was just. Here we have Donald Trump, where half of the country is opposed to him, and it is because his cause is fundamentally unjust. It is fundamentally anti-justice.
Yeah, and anti-democratic. And I think we can say that.
It is against the fabric of the country. He wants to unravel the fabric of the flag itself.
I mean, David from the Atlantic just wrote a beautiful piece on Sunday around it. And it just like his last paragraph was about.
Can't believe we're praising David.
I know, right? But he just wrote, it was just a beautiful piece because the last paragraph really spoke to that. And it's like, he was like, we have to be able to look at this on two ends, right? And be able to say, like, yo, and especially when it's domestic, that almost as like the idea of the nation, it's like the internal nation is not, when it comes abroad, okay, like, all right, we know we've heard about the Iranians, right?
Yeah.
But there's other things, like, if that comes, whatever, and like, if that happened as well too, and call me crazy.
You watch the Unity, it would be immediate.
And you know what it is? It's like, yo, all right, it's war, and this is how this country does that. It's like, oh, what? It is war. Wait,
it would be 100%
immediate.
And Tehran in a second. And
is
Biden
coming in.
He would have done it in an instant.
So all right. Let's because I want to kind of focus a little bit, right? For the actual shooting itself, right? One thing that's undeniable and that is almost kind of insane to him as almost a showman is.
He knew in the
his
moment.
His presence
right away,
of mind.
Get that fist up.
His presence of mind in that moment, when you watch that, and once he realizes that he is alive,
yeah,
it is it's something. He's a different kind of guy.
Wait a minute. You don't think that you would think to do that immediately?
Yeah, I mean, but he understands the moment. Like, not every
I would have done it. That feels like the instinct.
I think, but we give that, like, some people could cower on that, and that could have just, like, again, this is from the rally to all this around, like, everything around that, the fear in them people's faces. Some people could cower in that. the man itself, like, it's very striking that he does that. But again, I can look at that and say, oh, yo, this Crooks fucking guy might cook the election on some fucking, like,
because he created this image.
Like that wins the Pulitzer's done.
Yeah.
Unless anything, I don't know
whoever took that photo. That
was it Doug Mills or something like that. Yeah, like
that's the photo.
It's over with. That's done.
Of the year for sure.
That's done. I think. But then when we tell the story of this, what do we tell? Do we just do we put the photo up and let that photo speak, or do we have to put the caption under that to be like, Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z. Pick whatever like transgression against democracy. It has to be both.
Yeah, it has to be both.
It has
to
be
show
both.
the picture. If you want to talk about that he got shot, you show the picture of him with the blood on his face or whatever you want to show, and you can say Donald Trump, who unleashed a violent mob on the Capitol and tried to hang his vice president Mike Pence, seen here after having survived an assassination attempt.
But we're not good at novels in this country. We're good at short stories.
Yeah.
We're good almost
Tweets.
At tweets, at picture books sometimes.
Yeah.
And I worry because now it's like, all right, when you think through like the whole authoritarian, hey, you are mad, maybe now I'm causing that, but like, I've read enough, I've seen enough, I know enough history to look at what he does and what he says in the playbooks that he's playing by.
Yeah.
So whatever, I feel but like, when I start playing through and I'm like, yo, this is how it quickly happens. This is how.
Well, we already thought it was happening quickly.
Yeah, but like now, it's like, but also too,
brown shirts storming the plaza.
This goes back to Ukraine. This goes back to Afghanistan. Does anything move the needle in this country? Does this move the needle? And that's where I'm at with this. Well, yeah, I think we're all sunk in.
Yeah,
I still believe there's 60,000 votes that determine 270 across 6 states. I believe that, and it hasn't changed.
I also don't believe that there are people who can change position between now and November. But I think that every vote is already decided. I don't think there's anybody undecided anymore.
And I think that between 6 states, maybe 7, I guess, if we go into the Sun Belt, there's a path to 270, right? What are we going? We go Pennsylvania.
States that matter. I was going to go this direction. Yeah. So Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Could matter.
Yeah, it could.
A lot. And Georgia. That gets.
And I know Georgia. I think Georgia. We were getting a little shaky with that, but I think the apparatus in there could turn out the vote. But I say all to say is that all right, that piece is there, but what he has the ability to do, and I think we probably should be watching. I watched J.D. Vance last night and what he had to say, and I think we need to be really worried about him. Yeah. We need to be from here. He played all the notes, like as a politician. Like it was really jarring.
You know what he didn't talk about? How he converted to being a vegetarian for his Indian wife, so his son Vivek could live in Delray, Alexandria.
I know,
next to all the houses with the gay pride flags,
and also as well too. Like I get
in his $1.6 million house.
No one tells the story, and right, addiction is addiction, but that your mother was a nurse and that she was stealing pills from like. No one tells that part of the story.
Right.
So, like, again, that's why I think he's insidious as well, too, because, like, he's the intellectual Yale graduate military man that, like, his story, he tapped on the notes. And, like, I was like, oh, he's the fiddler.
Yeah, but he tapped on one very bad note.
Yeah, the Michigan thing was crazy.
He came out and said something about
Ohio State.
I went to Ohio State, blah, 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 and the booze. And
I was like, he might have tanked this whole shit.
And everybody was like chanting, "Let's go blue!" And
let's go blue at the Republican.
At their own nominee.
Convention was crazy.
So say what you get on me about.
I'm snatching that if I'm the Democrats.
Yes.
And we're like, yo,
They're
go
chanting,
blue.
Let's go blue.
Yo, you want to run propaganda? Let me go. DNC call me. We can make some. Yo,
here's several thousand Republicans chanting, "Let's go blue."
A gift. I think,
but also Michigan fans won't vote for J.D. Vance. Trump just totally wrecked his chances of winning Michigan because he's got an Ohioan on the ticket who is proud that he went to Ohio State. And nobody in Michigan, I don't care how MAGA they are, is going to vote for that.
Go blue.
There it is. I think that there's like a final point around this as well too, is that if Donald Trump is smart and
shrewd, I think maybe is the word,
savvy enough to figure out this moment, and I'm gonna go watch this later. He has a chance if he wants to actually switch what these independents you don't believe it, like that are there, or people. There's a chance for him to be to one come out and be like, I'm changed. I don't know.
That's what he's telling everybody.
I can't and
I've seen the light.
All right, whatever. Like, it's for me. I've seen enough evidence where I am not on that. I don't think he's capable.
No, I don't think he is either. But I think he knows to seize it because they said he scrubbed his speech and they rewrote the whole speech. NPR's coverage on the way up, I was listening. They said that the whole convention there haven't been really a lot of talk about. The American carnage. There wasn't a lot of talk about
Ron DeSantis is crazy. His shit was insane.
There hasn't been like a lot of conversation about Roe v. Wade or any of that.
They stripped it from the platform.
They got it all out of there, and they're presenting a very clean and polished convention.
It's almost
and you should be very worried about that.
I'm looking at that, and I'm like, because if they run on something like that, it can make the Democratic side. We already look chaotic, right? It's already there, and like we got 2 weeks to figure this out, a week and a half.
Yeah, but the ratings bonanza of an open convention would piss Trump off.
And that's where, if they seize on it, if you're bringing them Jan 6 people who if you produce it and make this into like, because
must-see TV,
I think you might be able to galvanize a high turnout. And no matter what you do, like, unfortunately, and I'm going a little further ahead of this, but unfortunately, like, Joe Biden can never be the change candidate at this point. He can't be the change. He just can't be that.
He has already been the change candidate.
Yeah, he can't do that
3 times.
Right. And I still think there's no way you go past Kamala at this point. Like, that is it. That would have to be.
I don't know.
There's no way.
If
you lose. You know,
you say
black folk for a long time.
Yeah,
a long time.
You say this thing about like if Trump's a showman or if he understands the moment. You know, the Biden folks have an opportunity to really understand a moment too, which is they could drop out and put Kamala on top right as Trump's giving his speech. And get all the coverage to switch. Nobody's going to want to hear Trump's speech if that's the thing that they get to cover. So that could be happening right now while we're on air.
And you recapture, I hate to put it this way, the media.
Yeah, right? You get that earned media.
Yeah, and it's going to flip that back. And also, too, the crazy thing about this is we got a long time before. There's so much time, and so many things can happen. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I almost want to pause. I think the people, like, specifically my black folk out there who think this is a conspiracy theory and that he didn't get shot on there. Someone told me about this. They said, this is so crazy. They said, well, you just can't understand how deep the corruption could go. And I was like, all right, okay.
You know, there's also such a thing as ineptitude, right? Like, I mean, the Secret Service fucked this up. We're going to talk about
we'll get to that point. But all the reporting that from the people they've turned, like, he was a quote, a comically bad shot, end quote, by his
at the gun
school,
club?
the gun club, and like this, I think their school had a team as well too.
Yeah, he tried out for it, and he didn't
comically
make it.
Bad shot.
9th graders aren't always great shots.
Yeah, so.
But anyways,
all
right. So that's the shooting. I'm sure we'll reference it again later in the show. It's
gonna be a through line for the next fucking 4
But
months.
yeah, we do have a whole another section about the details of the shooting. That's pretty good. Whoever wrote this show is pretty smart.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So let's we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna do a little bit of rundown, go over some things that you might want to know about that's going on in that thing called the news. We'll do the thing when it's time. Don't worry. I was trying to get you ready for it. All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
So goddamn fucking paranoid. Paranoid. Everything and everyone's out to get me. Nobody's helping me, nobody should let me be paranoid. So goddamn fucking paranoid. Paranoid. Everything and everyone's out to get me. Nobody's helping me, nobody should let me be paranoid.
Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's poppy out?
Brian, who was that?
That was, stand by, the Hippocampus with the song, this is perfectly titled, Paranoid.
Oh, there you go.
And it's from their album,
A brain
Blood.
writing a song about paranoia.
Yep.
All right. So now we've come to the part of the show that's called The Rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's gone on in the news. If we were professionals, of course, it would sound something like this.
Go Blue.
Thank you. Let's go Blue.
From Beltway Radio
That's
and
even
beyond
more funny.
in Washington, D.C., I'm J. Scott Smith, and this is the part of the hour where I tell you some stuff that's going on in the news.
Thanks, Jay. Jay, of course, is a Spartan.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he would be okay with the Let's Go Blue, but
No.
no, he hates Ohio as well.
That's true.
Yeah, it's the thing we have in common. So, all right, this is a special court edition of the rundown. This is about to run down like Rudy Giuliani through a folding chair. I hope you see that video. It's really great.
Is he sitting at the convention doing this?
No,
Where
he's
is
walking and fumbled and just ate shit through a folding chair. He was pointing at the chair and then he fell over. He was drunk. Brian will find the video. All right, so a judge on Monday, Eileen Cannon, dismissed the federal indictment against Donald Trump for the stolen documents, which was by far the most open and shut case there was, right? He didn't deny that he took the documents. Everybody saw that the documents were there. He refused to respond to the various requests to return them, and then hid them when he knew they were coming to look for them. So it's like the facts of the case are very, very open and shut. So Trump's lawyers went out and tried to argue what is one of the most batshit legal theories I've ever heard of in my life, and has never succeeded until now. Remember that Trump appointed Cannon.
Yes.
Remember that she has as much experience being a judge as I have being a judge.
Stop that. But
That's true. This is her first job, and she doesn't know anything, and so she's likely to be.
She has no trial experience, right?
Yeah, no trial experience, and she's a good patsy because she's a believer of some of this weird shit, and she doesn't know any better to like try to shoot it down for the institutional aspect of the court, right? She doesn't care about that or feel that yet because she's only been there for like 5 minutes. Yeah, but if you've got a crazy person who's been a judge for a long time, they revere the court a little more. Here you have a crazy person who's been a judge for 5 minutes, so she doesn't know like where the bathroom is yet, let alone revere the building. So the other thing that happened is that neighbor Clarence slipped this little piece of nonsense into the immunity decision in his concurring opinion.
And I think we have to kind of like, and I'm not going to say I'm a fucking constitutional fucking lawyer, but around the court, when they add those small like opinions to like the larger opinion, like that then gets into the law system, and like you can use that. Like other judges are able to look at that and use that.
Yeah, you can cite concurring opinions and stuff, opinions that concur with the majority. They're not the majority opinion.
Right.
They're a concurring opinion, but you can cite them. They don't set a precedent, but they do open up some avenues for judges to consider.
Because they've been written down, and now they're inside of the actual...
But you can also reference dissents in the same way.
Yes, you can.
So,
yeah. But people are going to use that and do that when it's convenient for them.
Yeah, of course they are. And so that's pretty much what happened here, is that neighbor Clarence wrote this thing into the immunity decision that was essentially asking a court to challenge the constitutional validity of special counsels.
Yeah.
So the wackadoodle theory goes like this, that only principal officers who are Senate confirmed, appointed by the president and Senate confirmed, can carry out a prosecution on behalf of the United States government. That would include the Attorney General and the Assistant Attorney General and like the 93 U.S. attorneys who are all Senate confirmed, and maybe a handful of other people, FBI director, I guess. But it's not much.
Right.
Which is not how anything has ever worked. The Constitution is very clear that the Attorney General can appoint inferior officers to work there in the Department of Justice. The law is very clear that the Attorney General can invest the authority of the Department of Justice and the United States government in a prosecutor when they hire them. It doesn't matter that they were in private practice beforehand or what their job was before. You know, if you go show up for your job at Dairy Queen, you're entrusted with the blizzard thing that makes the blizzard. It doesn't matter that you used to work at Burger King and were not trusted with their shake machine, right?
Yeah, you're here now.
You're here now. You're allowed to do it. So the theory was that, and Cannon somehow took this theory and goes, oh yeah, Jack Smith wasn't Senate confirmed, and also the Congress never appropriated the money for his office to do this job. And so therefore he's operating outside of the bounds of the Constitution, and therefore we have to throw the whole case out. All right, here's why this is stupid. The Attorney General can absolutely appoint anybody that they want to serve in this purpose. There's dozens and dozens of laws expressly pointing out how that works, and there's something like 65 years of case law that supports this. So, no. Secondly, this argument's been tried, and it's failed a lot.
Yeah.
Every single time, as a matter of fact. Thirdly, if the whole purpose of the special counsel is to sort of give the investigation of an appearance of or a veneer of impartiality, that the special counsel is working independent. They're an independent counsel. They're not taking orders from the Attorney General. They report to the Attorney General. The Attorney General could fire them, as we've had that argument back and forth hundreds of times in this country. The Attorney General can ultimately take their report and say, edit it very heavily and then release it before they release it and then claim that that's their report, like A.G. Barr did to Mueller's report. And, and Sessions wouldn't fire Mueller, because that's it's asinine. It's just like really, really dumb way to look at this. So anyway, if the special counsel is there to impart this impartiality on the case, then if he can't prosecute it, then the DOJ can prosecute it directly. The Attorney General can just prosecute it directly through their office or through one of the U.S. Attorney's offices that covers that jurisdiction. So the judge doesn't necessarily have to throw out the case. The judge can say, Jack Smith's off the case, Merrick Garland's in.
Right.
But she didn't do that. I don't know what number we're on. Fifth, maybe? Fifthly? Sixthly?
Fifth, I think.
This, Florida rolls up to the 11th Circuit. Okay? Eileen Cannon has done a really slow job on this case and has had a number of weird minutia hearings and things, and she's had them appealed by Smith or other people up to the 11th Circuit. And to a letter, every one of them has been overturned.
Right.
The 11th Circuit seemed really close to plucking her off the case. If she had done another one of these ridiculous things, Smith was going to file a mandamus request, which is where the higher court basically yanks a case away from a judge and puts a different judge in there. This is kind of a mandamus in disguise because this is going to get appealed to the 11th Circuit. They're going to say not only is this legal reasoning so far off the mark that it's, the case is back on, but also this judge clearly doesn't know what she's doing. We're going to take this case up ourselves.
Right.
So,
but it takes
time.
But she succeeded in what Donald Trump
stretching it out.
Yeah, delay. And no one's stupid here. It's easy. From the things that she was considering, no one had ever seen a judge do before.
Right.
A lot of the time.
She invited amicus briefs in the middle of a hearing.
It's things no one's ever seen. Again, not saying I'm criminal justice major, but just basic things. I'm this has never been seen.
Imagine if the referee in a basketball game stopped the game for a minute and was like, would anybody like to drive a Lamborghini on the court for a few minutes? Yes? Okay, how about a Ferrari? What we're going to do is we're going to let the Ferrari drive around first, then we're going to let the Lamborghini drive around first, and if LeBron James wants ice cream, then it's a basket for the Clippers. That's what she did. That's the, weird fucking thing that she did. It's stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the other stuff, and then the answer was nothing.
And because the way our system works, you have to allow these things to happen.
Because she orders it, you have to do it.
So it's it's always crazy when the rule of law and democracy starts to play defense. Again, it's very because people get you. You figure out you kind of know, and that's why a lot of these folks regardless of what you think about her and what her qualifications are, when these folks who do understand the concept of the law are very scary because then they know kind of the weak points.
Yeah,
in
they
it.
know how to manipulate the
Yeah,
system.
and it's like, the system sometimes, like, I mean, it did this one time, I think, to January 6th and, like, certifying the elections, right? Some of those things, sometimes it bends, but it doesn't break. How long before it fully breaks? I don't know how many more things can bend, because if enough of these things are bending, like, that's where we run it.
Eventually, you stress the system enough, and we're kind of seeing that, right?
Yeah,
we're seeing that the attempted stressors on the system are starting to cause things to give way just by sheer attrition.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the system just can't keep doing this. You know, the election system, right? Through just constant bombardment, threat, and just weird filings and shit. People don't want to work for that system anymore. It's breaking because people don't want to work there anymore. And you can't get enough vote counters or elections officials or people to drive the ballot trucks or any of that stuff. And so by wearing it down, they are going to eventually break it. The justice system might be something sort of similar, where people don't really, if judges are constantly getting attacked and having their houses firebombed, they might not want to do that job anymore. And there just won't be enough people willing to be judges. And then we'll have to import immigrant judges who work for much less money because they're willing to take jobs Americans don't want.
You have just scared so many people. I don't know why you just said that. God forbid.
They'll be English. Don't worry.
Yes.
No. They already wear the weird things.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
get bottle those Canadian guys, they got the red ones, I think, right? What's up with that? Anyway, so
Damn, no red stuff on. No red in this. Like, well, actually, no. Wow, that's crazy.
Let's go blue.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
In November, let's go blue.
So there's an appeal. Jack Smith, of course, has already filed his appeal or notice that he's going to appeal. So he has to tell Judge Cannon, he's like, look, lady, you know I'm going to appeal this, right? And she goes, yeah. And he goes, all right, well, this is your notice. I'm doing that. And the last time he did an appeal on something she wrote where her opinion was like 3 pages, he sent back 2,900
essays
pages.
I was doing in friggin' school.
Yeah, he sent back, like, not with the citations and all of the bibliographies to back it up, just 29 pages of why this judge is an idiot back to the 11th Circuit. And you know what they did? They went, yeah, appeal granted. That was it. So that's going to happen.
Yes.
Which leads us to that President Biden is finalizing plans to come out this week to announce that he will support a bunch of legislation to really change the court. Now, some of this is pipe dream stuff. Yeah. Not going to be able to get a lot of this through Congress, or probably none of it through Congress, but the things that he's talking about supporting are term limits, which is great. All the rest of the Democratic world has term limits on their judges. Even some of the autocrats have term limits on their judges. And he's going to support a code of ethics that's like actually enforceable on the justices. But he's not going to say he's wanting to like expand the court.
She's never done that.
Because he's probably not going to be okay with that. But he is saying that he might support a constitutional amendment to specifically say presidents don't have immunity under the Constitution. Now, that's a heavy lift. There hasn't been an amendment passed in a really long time. And certainly not one that like actually somebody would object to. You know, the last ones were like procedural things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, pipe dream, probably.
I just wish.
But that he's willing to speak it kind of matters.
But it's some of these things he should have been speaking 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, he wasn't desperate.
And that's
this is like bringing out the big guns.
And that's where I'm like, why are we? It's like I feel like we're playing Madden down by 21 with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to go.
And we had Bo Jackson the whole time, and we just didn't use him?
Well, I mean, we could look back on that, right? I mean, but it's like
Roe v. Wade, people.
He has the bully pulpit, right? And that, if I had a criticism of his 4 years there, is that even for the things he knew he couldn't get past,
he didn't go out and shout about it.
Yeah, and again, so like people could easily be like, well, he's always out here and place blame why he couldn't do it. I feel that way about like student loans.
Yeah,
like the relief.
He just did another $1.2 billion today.
But like anything he couldn't do, and being like going out there and having other people like in the cabinet as well as in like these agencies going out on behalf of him and selling these things to be like, hey, we're trying to do this.
We did this and they struck it down, but I'm going to go and do the tour that I was going to do as the victory. And at every stop, I'm going to go out there and say, I would love to have given you all of this student loan relief, but you see those fuckers over there? They stopped me.
Yeah, and like also too, now as I think through it, like, I mean, maybe like to be honest, like he didn't have the gas to do that. Like I don't think he did.
They could have sent somebody.
Somebody, yeah. But I mean that's where it looks like
You got Pete.
Yeah, there are people like
Just send Mayor Pete out to do it.
I mean, they sent Mitch Landrieu out to do the
Yeah.
infrastructure stuff.
Yeah.
There are capable people out there
Yes.
to go. Phenomenal man as well too. Like met him one day, was great, like really good.
You know, Marty O'Malley's sitting over
Yeah.
there running Social Security. He's got time. Go send him out.
There are people like and
Who
like
can deliver the message.
and like also too. Ideally, when you have right an executive that for whatever like right is older, he is that. The rest of everyone else should have been able to go out there and sell the message, but we don't know how to tell good news. We don't know how to like, we don't know how to sell like
Well, Democrats don't.
Democrats specifically don't. They don't like
He should have been at every ribbon cutting for the IRA stuff.
everyone.
Everyone in the reddest districts and be like, hey, enjoying that infrastructure? Enjoying that new bridge? How do you like that?
Did he do that with
new
McConnell
school?
in Kentucky?
He did do that to McConnell in Kentucky.
That's more like spite. It feels.
He
like.
went there. He went there for the bridge that they built across
Yeah.
the Ohio. Yeah, but like he did at the State of the Union, where he was like, "Hey, y'all like all that money, right?" And he goes, "Even some of you are taking credit for it who voted against it." And they all went, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, you want to give it back?" Could have been out there barnstorming that. Still been barnstorming
And
that.
2 years ago, again, when like he is like, because like now he's under this. Like, think about all the stresses like of his campaign. I mean, of his
He
presidency.
could have been out doing that thing as the economy was starting to roar, and then rode it through the roar and never shut up about it.
Going to South Carolina and talk about voting rights.
Yeah.
Going to Georgia and talk
Yeah.
about have those ones, like have those conversations, because then you could at least be like you've used the pulpit to like talk about it. And I think that's the miss. But also too, around some of these other things around the court as well too, he's a creature of the institution. And like, why I've never expected like expanding the court. No, like, even around the filibuster, right? All those things he's never going to do because he's a creature of the Senate. He is a creature of what he understood.
He thinks there's a way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
there
doesn't-
was.
There
There
was.
was.
Yeah. This kind of brings us to the next thing that we're going to talk about is like, you know, in or out, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries went to go talk to him separately and with nobody around.
Yeah.
That's pretty telling. That Jeffries met him at the White House, and
they don't
Schumer
have
actually
COVID.
came down to Rehoboth. Yeah, it's a little worried. It was last week.
Oh yeah, it was like, oh yeah,
Um,
because it just and it didn't leak out, which is the other thing, till this week.
Right. So Schumer, it didn't leak. They told everybody that they had these conversations, essentially.
Yes, but a lot of this reporting happened this week on.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
They didn't report it last week.
No, nobody knew about it.
Yeah,
But
which
then
is-
they went out and told everybody, hey, we had these meetings.
Yeah.
It's not like some
Yeah, so,
staffer
yeah, correct.
leaked it, and then the reporters
Yes.
are like, did you have the meeting? And they go,
They
well,
said
I
it.
guess you got me. No, they went out and said,
The fact that it didn't come out is very like it's tough. Like, hey, good.
no
for
one
them.
else was in the room where it happened, the
Yeah.
room where it happened. I mean, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
And so, look, if Chuck makes the trek from New York down to Rehoboth, that's important. That's
Yeah.
a real meeting. So, and then today Pelosi came out. Schiff, who's Pelosi's like right hand,
Yeah.
and running for Senate there
Future senator.
in California, he is the highest profile so far to really call for Biden to get out. You know, Biden's dismissed all of these calls from senators and congressmen as like, hey, look, they're looking out for their own reelection, and I used to do that too, and I understand it. But that it's different when it's coming from these kind of guys. And then Pelosi today is basically saying she's going to go have a conversation with him, which you know what that is. It's not to like ask him how he thinks the second half of the Major League Baseball season is going to go.
No.
which I'm sure he would love to talk about, by
Yeah.
the way, because Joe Biden loves baseball.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a like, all right, Joe, the polls aren't there. So let's say he does step down. We even speculated it could be happening tonight, right?
Right.
It's probably not, but it could happen tonight while Trump is speaking and steal all the thunder and get all the media attention. But if he does step aside, what happens next?
I think it's clear-minded on here at this point. Like, Kamala Harris has to be at the top of the ticket.
Yes.
Again, we know whatever, and like Gretchen Whitmer and friggin'
Cory Booker, J.B. Pritzker. There's a lot of
Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom, sure.
All those like
Eventually Wes Moore.
Wes
You can
Moore
see
definitely.
Yeah.
Because again, when it comes to playing the game of politics, right? It's that if you circumvent her, you
damage too many key constituencies.
Yeah, and you lose, and this party is done for 50 years.
Yeah. So in the same way that Republicans have not been able to recover the black vote that they used to have, half of.
Yeah.
This would damage the black vote for Democrats in a way where I could see black folks just not voting for anybody for a long time. Because, one party's directly hostile to them and the other one basically took advantage of them for 60 years.
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't blame anybody.
Right. But then it's like also too, it's like that's not an option either because we have but they could literally destroy. It wouldn't even be.
It would also damage the woman vote.
And it will be a realignment at that point. That's when you probably would really see a strong third party.
Yeah,
that's where it would happen.
Because there's all of the non-Trump Republicans who would be looking for something, and then the disaffected Democrats who felt like they got taken advantage of. And both of them have a lot in common in that they want certain basic functionality.
Yeah.
And none of them's opposed to climate legislation.
Exactly.
Or none of them's opposed to basic social welfare things or expanding Head Start or whatever. There's a lot of common ground there.
She just has, and I think as well.
Harris brings those people along, though.
Yeah, we were saying off air as well, there's no way for Joe Biden to be the change candidate at this point, right?
Right.
But
he did twice as Obama's VP, and then again as changing. So really 3 times.
But if you put her at the top of the ticket, she immediately becomes the change candidate.
Yes.
It all switches.
It's a change of everything.
Everything.
And it brings out, what we were talking about was that this election is the only undecided people are people who are undecided about whether they're going to vote or whether they're going to stay home.
Yeah.
If Kamala's on the top of the ticket, a lot of the people who were definitely going to vote Democrat but are just apathetic to the whole thing because they think it's kind of hopeless at this point, all of a sudden those folks come right off the couch and they're out there voting.
Yeah.
And you see the money will probably turn back on. Kamala's been an excellent fundraiser.
Yeah.
Through all this time and all of her time in the Senate and stuff. So, and she's run a lot of elections and won. All the way from starting as a prosecutor to being a DA to being a senator.
And I think to win
she hasn't
senator
lost a single election that she's running.
To win senator in California is you have to actually campaign.
Yeah, it's a whole country.
Right. It's not that piece I'm not worried at all about. I think Georgia comes immediately into play at that point. I think Stacey Abrams turns on that apparatus at a different level. I think she does that regardless, but she can sell the story better.
It's different if Stacey Abrams turns on the Georgia machine for reasons of joy rather than for reasons of defense and fear.
Yes.
And so, the teams that play with joy are the teams that win. If you've all of a sudden got an optimistic change candidate, somebody that you want to be the president, not just because he's not the other guy, you really do drive a lot more turnout.
She could also, too, double down on things maybe that he wouldn't do. Right? Yeah. We could still take everything of the last 4 years, but she could easily
well, because she was a part of all of that. So all the credit still runs with her on the the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Law and the PACT Act with the veterans and all of those great accomplishments, lowering insulin prices, all of those things are as much Harris as they are Biden. So you just piggyback that.
Now, do I trust this country to be at a point where they're electing a
black woman?
A black woman to that?
That's the
South
question
Asian
I
woman.
would like
I
to
know.
ask.
Yeah,
So
of course.
that is
yeah.
the question, right?
Yeah,
That's why I was hesitant to put Kamala at the top, because I don't really think this country is able to do that.
But like, I could say if they did that and we lost, I could then go and be like, hey, you know what? We did what we knew was the right thing to do.
It'll console us in the camps.
Yeah, or it'll right, because what's gonna happen, right? Because a lot of people have went, like a lot of people I've talked to, whether in civil society or other places as well too, are in all right, we're election planning right now. We are planning that if he get, like, there's despair out there. They're planning if he gets elected, right?
How to leave.
Yeah, but not even how to like,
I'm planning that.
but 7 months in, he's gonna do some wild shit again. Everybody's gonna be like, what the fuck were we thinking?
Yeah.
And we know the midterms are gonna go the way they go on that. You know how this plays out.
Yeah.
And granted, like, he's now, whether it's Project 2025 or the other people, like, okay, he could start adjusting the mechanisms for, right, J.D. Vance to continue this on. But like at that point, like, we know what we're like. We know how his presidency turns on, like, the opposition.
Yes.
So, like, you could see that, like, the House. I mean, if the Senate is lost, that's gone for damn near 10 years.
Could be.
There's really no, like.
Yeah, the map isn't in our favor.
Yeah, it's not, like, if it's lost, it could be gone for 10 years. And right, no one wants to believe the polls, but I don't know. Maybe this is the time where it's like, it just doesn't seem common sense at this point.
Do we have polling data that shows how well Kamala does against Trump in key swing states?
I think
I'm sure there is.
There is polling data out there. I think from the last that I heard is that there wasn't a measurable difference at this point, right?
But I bet there's an enthusiasm jump.
And for me, yeah, it's like, all right, for now, but once it happens, there's gonna be that first.
Yeah.
And then also too the convention becomes something.
The mechanism for? Yeah, then the convention becomes something that everybody really wants to watch.
Yeah, that becomes
not to watch for fear that Biden's going to slip up,
exactly.
but because they want to watch to see the mechanism of this and the excitement of it.
And who in a few weeks comes out and grabs the reins of, like, all right, let's say it is Kamala, and right, she gets us through, and then who grabs the reins to either become a vice president option or become the new. I think Barack Obama is a once in a generation politician that you'll never be able to recreate. At the timing, financial crisis, all those things. But
think about the forcefulness with which Obama will come out.
Yes,
to support and what that drives.
Like, is there anybody in the Democratic Party that goes on there and gives a keynote speech that we look at for
the way we looked at Obama's 04 speech or whatever?
Yeah, is there, because like there's a deep need for that right now.
Yes.
There's a deep need for that.
I don't know. I mean, there are rising stars.
There are,
right?
yeah.
And you see them in Carolina, you see them in Pennsylvania,
you see them in
Maryland, you know, with Wes Moore. There's people around who you know did like what Beto did, sort of, you know, and like really rally some people and stuff. That, you know, Michigan's full of these kind of people, and they're Jasmine Crockett could be the one.
Yeah.
You know, there's some real stars around, and if Biden clears out and puts Harris at the top, then it really does clear the field for this whole thing to kind of flip over.
The election,
Biden and Pelosi and Schumer can all ride off happily into the sunset, and Jeffries and Crockett and Schiff can come right in behind them.
The election can't hang on his every cough. And
right.
that's
we're
where
all,
we're
we're all nervous all the time.
And I feel it too. And like, I'm like, this is so dumb. I can give, like, I look at the executive as successful executive as a person who is able to push bills through Congress and sign them. However, though, I know in this country, a successful executive is one who presents themselves as, again, the executive of the like, and we don't look at it. It's not like because Congress is so damn weak. It's we look at the other branches.
We look
for
at
power.
we look at the executive to drive the legislative agenda.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
It's just crazy.
It shouldn't be that at all.
It shouldn't be that way.
And that's why we keep electing senators.
Yeah, but also too, it's kind of interesting as well too, because now we're in that weird thing with like what does the commander in chief's conversations with other world leaders look like? And that's the shaky part, I think, where the electorate is a little shaky. It's like,
Okay, so
Nobody votes on foreign policy.
But saying that, that's the thing that I kind of feel like is again another big question, because it's like we've seen what Trump does in front of international leaders,
Shoves the president of Montenegro.
yes, and all that stuff, and we've seen Biden. So again,
Montenegro now.
Yeah. So again,
too many Negros.
there you go. There's a clip. Again, if mind you, among this small group here, we know full well if there is a switch, the best person is Kamala.
Yeah.
Because full well, because we want to show ourselves to the rest of the world.
She's the vice president.
Also,
Yes.
there's the continuity of governance here, right?
Right.
Yeah, she's the
she's
vice
been
president.
there the whole time.
Whole life.
She hasn't not been in any of the meetings.
Right.
So,
So everyone,
continuity.
I've heard a lot of black people keep saying it back. It's like, where's Kamala? She ain't doing anything. She's just
The fuck
doing that.
she's not. She's
That's what I'm
in every
saying.
meeting.
Everyone doesn't know what a vice president does. A vice president is not just waiting in wings to, on the bench and say, oh, he's asleep.
It
All right, I'm
depends
president
who
for today.
Who the administration is. But in the same way that Obama didn't do anything without Biden there,
Yeah.
it's not like Biden is going to do anything without Harris there.
Right.
This is how like real government works.
Right.
It's not the way that Trump government works.
She's the vice president.
Right.
It's the
Former senator.
The only logical conclusion is that if the president is not able to do his duties, that the next person up is the already vice.
Right, they're already there.
They're there. It
That is
doesn't-
their other job besides presiding over the Senate is to be there in case. We are at in case.
Yeah, we're at, break the glass.
So break the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Okay, but Brian, if Kamala, here's the mechanism of this, because we do need to talk about what the mechanism for how
Trump gave her a nickname. He's scared. Laughing Kamala.
Who did?
Trump. Laughing Kamala.
Laughing Kamala, because she laughs at things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
Very
terrible
weird one.
nickname.
It's a bad one, but he gave it. So that lets me know something right there.
He's worried.
He's worried. It's all I already know.
What would have to happen is Biden would have to release his delegates or pledge them to her, and because they're on the same ticket currently, it's really easy to do that. The money can stay because it's already her names are already on everything. So you don't have to reconfigure the funding apparatus or any of the PACs or any of that kind of stuff. That's all easily transferable. It's all the same ticket still. And then you just have to, Biden would drop out and somebody else would be added, but Harris would be the constant. So therefore, the corporations all still exist, the LLCs, blah, blah, blah. But I think the delegates thing kind of matters, right? Because then Biden has to technically release his delegates and then they have to vote
I think twice
themselves.
Almost, right?
Yeah, but they have to vote without the consent of their states.
Yeah.
Because you can't hold a primary in that amount of time. So then it's really the delegates making the choice. And there are people who are saying that looks like a shady backroom deal because the delegates are choosing not the people.
Isn't that the whole smoke-filled room shit we used to do?
Until fairly recently.
Yeah,
states did things in smoke-filled rooms with conventions and caucuses, and then the actual convention until 1968 was basically this. So I'm not saying that it's not legal or anything like that, but there is this peril of somebody looking at it and going, well, we didn't have a primary. We didn't really get to choose our own nominee. It was handed to us by the party elites. And does that damage anything going forward?
That shit's been sailed, though. And, at this point, it's we're 3 weeks out or something from the fucking...
I'm not saying there's a good answer or alternative. I'm saying that is the criticism that is going to be leveled.
Yeah, all right, well... Do you know what the alternative is, everyone?
Again, we're back to that.
You know what the alternative is?
Yes.
And I don't know. Everybody else hasn't watched this RNC convention right now. I've been watching it. I haven't watched all the speeches because I'm not watching Byron
I'm not
Donalds
watching right now.
I'm not. I'm missing the most. But like those people,
You don't want to watch Matt Gaetz in his 6 head?
yo, him and
He had a
McCarthy.
5 head, but then it got Botox, so now it's a 6 head.
Look, I think they look that party looks very unified.
They
and
do.
They look like they're hell bent on destruction. And if
They're
that,
unified around destroying this country.
if their head if this guy really comes out off some like I've changed, this has changed me, you don't know, because also too then like what if the man is like gun laws need to change?
Yeah.
Well, that would be insane. Like that would be it. They already because people might be like you're crazy about that, and I'm like, JD Vance was just talking about mama, whoever, again, I ain't going on your grandma, bro, but like again as well too, whoever her name is, like her
Mama.
having her friggin' 19 loaded pistols and like you playing the notes for those individuals, but like
If Trump comes out and tells people guns are bad and they need to be controlled, do the people fall as much because they're in the cult, or do they snap out of it and go, wait a minute?
hold on, because if they stay with the cult, then it's like
Then we get gun laws, and that's great.
and then it's like then people are like, hold up, how do we use this man?
Yeah,
to, like,
what do we got to do to
Hold
finesse
up.
him into the next thing?
Does this man exactly? Because then does it become like is this
Maybe it's been a deep fake end run all along.
because again
Trump just ran and destroyed the country for 4 years just to get you idiots on his side, and then he's gonna flip around and be like, free school lunches for all the children.
and I don't believe that, but I'm like if even if he chooses to do a modicum of that, right? If he goes on this unity type pledge, personally, I think him and Joe Biden need to go on TV as a nation thing. When it goes back to this whole, I think they need to go on TV and be like, hey,
The way Clinton and Bush and,
like,
and
yo,
Obama
we
did.
ain't really doing like, hey, it's gonna be heavily scripted and all that type of shit, but like just to do that, because that would bring down the temperature.
Bill, Jeff, and W really did a long time doing that
Yeah.
shtick together, and it raised a lot of money for a lot of good things.
Yeah, like because at this point, maybe maybe that happens. I don't have a lot of hope for that, but like there's an opportunity, and this man doesn't seem to miss his opportunities.
Yeah.
he doesn't
It
seem to
could
be
be
there.
there.
He could be
It
there.
very well could be there.
But Kamala Harris needs to be at the top of this ticket. I mean, that's point blank. Period.
So
at this
when
point.
we post this episode, tell us in the comments who you think should be the VP under Kamala, and don't say Doug. That's too funny.
That's it.
He could go from second gentleman to VP.
Yeah, we need a
So I'm seeing a clip of Trump in his speech. He's honoring the guy who got killed at his rally.
okay. Of
course.
So we can, but before that he was mentioning about how much donation money he was getting. So it's
Of course he was.
I mean, okay.
I need to fight the corrupt Alan Bragg in New York City, where I used to live. Not many people know that.
I mean, hold
I
on.
hate New York.
This is my thing as well too. I mean, the man played golf the next day after this as well
He
too.
can't help himself. He's everything.
And I was like,
that he
and
is.
in my mind,
He's
I was like,
always that.
I wonder if he called the people.
He didn't.
That's
We're going to talk about that later. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the details and the aftermath of the shooting, and a couple more things that we want to talk about that aren't necessarily great, but we do need to talk about. And then we're going to end on an uplifting story. I promise it's going to be good. You're going to have fun.
We'll dig you up out our grave.
Yeah, foreshadowing.
Bruh.
You went way to the deep end for that one. All right,
6 feet or 12.
Depends if you double up. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
The caravan of mostly Central American immigrants is now in the Mexican city of Guadalajara.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Gay. Frogs. Won't you fight for your life? Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. I don't like a frog. for you. Frogs! Place point. I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks. You're full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lying. Because you're lying. That's why. Oh, there's energy and oh, now we're done with Trump. You said he was the Messiah. You said he was invincible. I will not suffer your Q people after this. I knew what you were day one. I know what you are now. Witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why every goddamn thing out of your people's mouths doesn't come true. You said it was all over. You told us the stuff. You. Oh, God. Witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Because every
Back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
Watch for that.
That's to honor the dearly departed Lou Dobbs.
Yeah.
He passed away today at the age of 906. It's good for him. He's lived a long time. So long, in fact, that he built the city of
Watch for
Wapakoneta.
that.
The caravan of mostly Central American immigrants is now in the Mexican city of Oaxaca. The caravan of mostly Central American immigrants is now in the Mexican city of Oaxaca.
I haven't watched this in a while. I see where he looks to the and
He's not sure what he's reading.
Say, hold on, because I guess he's seen further into the teleprompter or whatever, and it's like he looks down at something like, "Do I have like a phonetic spelling or something?" like this?
Yeah. Help.
And he's like, "Mexican city, watch for that."
Oh, good God, that's funny.
Oh my God!
Yeah. See you later, Lou. You can go hang out with sober Rush Limbaugh.
You beat me to it.
Speaking of which, in case anybody's wondering, Tez already was clowning me for drinking fake beer. I have a doctor's appointment coming up. The last time that I drank any beer before a doctor's appointment, even though it was a couple of days, 3-4 days before, they tested me and they're like, "Oh, your liver sucks. We have to like run a battery of tests on you," and then I couldn't drink for 2 months.
Yeah.
And that was a terrible mistake. So I've learned to take my penance on the front end, essentially.
Yeah.
And suffer through a couple weeks, and then I'll be all right. Okay. We're going to talk a little more detail about the shooting that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump got his ear pierced. It's like going to Claire's.
Tell me, maybe.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. So the first one is we did talk about that, like, dead doesn't mean good.
Yeah.
The guy who got shot, his name is Corey Comparatore. He was a firefighter and a
Comparatore. Oh, so he's like a
he's an Italian.
Yeah, well, like the most famous Italian, Mike Tirico.
Yeah. He's not quite that color.
But, okay.
But I'm sure his family had trouble getting a reservation at one point in their life. So in any case, he died. He was shielding his family. Again, that's what they say, and that's true. But also, his Twitter existed, and it's reprehensible and awful. And so, like, when this shooting happened, I spoke to several people, and they were like, "Well, this guy died," and I was like, "Yes, and they go, "No, that's horrible. You can say what you want about Trump, but you shouldn't just dismiss this dead person. He was just a rally goer." I'm like, no, there's nobody who goes to a Trump rally for fun and isn't part of that. They have to wait in the sun for days at a time. The conditions are often pretty terrible. You know, these are the most fervent supporters of this awful cult you could possibly imagine. So I was like, I know this guy is going to turn out to be an absolute scumbag, and then he dies, and people are going to forget all of that. So then he dies, and then everybody goes and checks his Twitter, and he is an absolute scumbag. He's telling the Israelis to bulldoze Gaza, and you know, Piers Morgan is like, well, where will the people go after that? And he's like, the Japanese got over us bombing Hiroshima. Like, no, we're not talking about that. When former Secretary Mike Pompeo said that the U.S. would lose if Ukraine lost the war to Russia, right? Weirdly, Pompeo is like standing by. I mean, he is an army guy. I guess he likes wars. The dead guy was like, exactly what would be our great loss? Like, oh, okay. You're just like, you're in on this, all of this stuff. So, you know, people can have their opinions about him or whatever. It's another person who, by virtue of their untimely and unfortunate death, people are changing the narrative of their life. And it doesn't work that way. Remember that your social media outlives you.
The one was that last piece there. He said in another post, a firefighter said he would rather say Russian President Vladimir Putin instead of Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
That's un-American.
Okay.
That's un-American.
Well, you know, I guess he won't get his chance to. What's for lunch? Speaking of this guy, the dead guy, right? Joe Biden called the family like right away. As soon as it was determined what could happen, he called to try to tell them, you know, we're sorry that this happened, and you know, what can we do to help? And the wife refused the call. She said, I don't want to talk to Joe Biden. My husband was a Republican, and he wouldn't want me to do that. Okay.
Again,
the 1950s was a long time ago, lady, but you're apparently still there.
We lost the plot of the whole again, back to the nation state.
Right.
Because
the president of your country is calling and he wants to speak to you on the phone.
Like, and specific for the reason as well.
The reason he's calling.
Because, like, all right, you might say an athlete is going against the nation state because they don't want to go for a White House visit.
Yeah, but that's
some bullshit. It's a game.
Yeah.
There's someone has died in an act of violence.
National tragedy.
And like, what? We're not picking up the phone for the president?
Right.
And if Trump was calling somebody for that as well, too, I would say you should pick the phone up. Yes,
you should pick the phone up if the president calls. I mean, this isn't like, you know, you can, I don't know how to interpret this other than another act of political violence. I mean, essentially is you could say, look, I don't agree with the man on anything, but he called to talk to me as a human being and, you know, with the power of the office, and he still took the time to call and check in on it. And you know, I disagree with his politics vehemently, but he was a understanding, caring individual when he called. You could say all of that. Or you just go like, no, fuck him, I'm not picking up the phone. But you know who else has not called that family? Donald Trump. Hasn't called them. And that's been confirmed over and over. The papers kind of really can't.
Yeah, last I heard, the office of Trump called, not him.
Yeah, right.
The office
that little
did.
desk in Mar-a-Lago.
So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, he can say he's changed if he does say that, but he hasn't. And here is this thing. Like, we're not asking you to do a lot, man. We're asking you to call and be like, yo, I hear your husband took the bullet that whizzed past my ear. I'm really sorry about that. You know, like, is there anything I can do to help? You know, where should I send flowers? Anything. You want to cuddle? Like, nothing. He didn't do anything. He just...
Go snatch a vase and some flowers from one of your friggin' properties.
Right.
Send that.
Well, they're only painted on one side because they're meant to just stay up against
There's
the
a
wall.
funny story of Mike Shore and his wedding gift from Donald Trump.
Yeah, from Mark Short was a gift from
from Donald Trump, and
it's like a vase from one of the hotels.
And it's only painted on one side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how we know that. So, you know, the papers were shocked that Trump hadn't called, so they keep calling and checking with the family like every day, like, hey, did he call you yet? And they're like, no, he hasn't called. She said, I don't have any ill will towards Biden. He didn't do anything to my husband. A 20-year-old despicable kid did. Still don't
That's
wanna take his
actually-
call. That's a fair take.
That's more than I expected, actually. Sheesh.
It's correct.
That is correct. And I guess as well too, you got the right in this country not to speak to the president, right?
Yeah.
Like, cause it's just kind of it's kind of ass backwards in the whole concept of all what we talk about here.
Yeah, I don't think that people who go to Trump rallies or the families of people who go to Trump rallies are aware of what a nation state is. I don't think they understand. They've not read Cardinal Richelieu.
But they do in a weird way.
No, they believe in an ethno state.
That's true. I guess that's
which is the opposite of the nation state.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of the nation state is that we're American by dint of the fact that we live here. That's the thing that ties us together. It's an idea. We are a nation. Doesn't matter where you came from, e pluribus unum, whatever.
Right.
Whereas the ethnic state is like, oh, we are the same kind of
the
person.
same blood.
The
almost.
same, yeah. It's a state that's based on ethnicity, based on blood, and it's not based on the borders or the ideas or anything like that. And that's what the Trumpistas seek to establish, is a white Christian ethno state, and that doesn't go to church. Speaking of which, the other thing to talk about with the shooting is the massive security failure that allowed this to happen. So Trump was shot by somebody with a AR-15 chambered in NATO round 5.56 from a little under 150 yards away. By most counts, if you ever fired this kind of a gun or talked to somebody who has, this is considered like gimme distances. If you were shooting at targets from 150 yards, you better hit, especially with this gun. It has like no kick. It's really easy to fire. It's very comfortable. There's a lot of reasons you should be better at it. This kid was out there with a rangefinder. He knew the distance. He had the scope. But there's some other details about this. One is, a thing that you should probably know is that the Secret Service plans these events way in advance, and one of the ways that they do that is they partner with the local law enforcement to work out certain things.
It's the only way to do it.
It's the only way to do it because the Secret Service would have to be huge otherwise. So they roll into the local area way ahead of time. They do a lot of preliminary checks. They scope out the area. They look for any potential risks and threats. And then they press the local cops into service to do things like route traffic, be a physical presence, patrol, monitor. They tie into their communications. So they're really piggybacking on that. When they got to Butler, they were like, hey, we need you to station people here, here, and here, and here. And the county cops were like, we don't have that many people. We've only got 6 officers or whatever. They can't all be in 20 different places. And the Secret Service was like, yeah, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. It wasn't fine, right? Another part of this is the building where the shooter was. Again, it was close by, but it was outside of the perimeter where they were sweeping people with metal detectors. So if the perimeter had been widened out, they would have been able to stop this from happening, and they would have been able to secure the area more, but they didn't do that. And the only thing that comes to mind to me with that is when January 6th, and he's on the ellipse, and Trump's like, take down the metal detectors. And they won't do it, right? But he's like, take them down. They're not here to hurt me. And so he was fine with people having a bunch of weapons really close to him because he trusted that they weren't there to hurt him.
I think there lies, and I think that we haven't gotten here sooner is kind of miraculous, because as I think through this, and I think I've thought to January 6th a lot about this, I've thought to his response to the taking down the ability to check for weapons, right? And his response when they couldn't bring him to the Capitol.
Right.
And I think and maybe most people don't know, but I do think the detail for the president is different from the detail from a former president and from detail from a person running for
campaigning.
Yeah,
exactly.
I also think that the Secret Service probably someone came and said, hey, yo, we don't think, and I think they say this a lot, looking at his rallies and looking back on something, I think they go in and say, hey, we don't think this is a good idea. We can't actually go ahead and protect this. And I think he is able, as a former president,
To say,
push. Nah,
too bad, we're doing it
We're
anyway.
doing it fucking. And what are they gonna do? They're
Right.
gonna go protect it.
They're going to do the best they can, but they have already. Yeah,
I guarantee, and
there's got to be an email before every one of these rallies that
I
says,
guarantee
"Sir, we
you, when they
advise
go to
against
Congress,
this."
when they go to Congress for this, because and that's
It's
why
gonna
I
be
think
next week.
and that's why I think they were adamant getting ready to go to Congress.
Yeah.
Because if you're shaky on this shit, you probably don't want to go sit
You
in front
come
of
up with a reason.
Yeah.
But the director of the Secret Service is ready to go answer questions because you think she's got some sort of
I guarantee
email
it, yo,
chain
to
that
be like,
says,
hey,
we
all
told
X-
you not to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can just see that exchange happening, right? And exactly in the towns he's trying to hold these rallies, they don't seem to be well funded or shit like that to have a
Yeah.
robust police force.
Right, and they've got a bunch of Billy Bobs on the force anyway.
Yo, and it does seem as well too that many people saw this guy.
So that is part of the thing, is that somebody saw him kind of get up onto the roof and stuff, and they went and alerted the local cops, and the local cops radioed it in to the Secret Service, and then they went to go check on it. And when the one cop got up there to go check on it and saw him up on the roof, the shooter saw him, pointed his gun at him, that cop dropped, and the shooter realized he has zero time. It's go now or die. So he just turns and shoots. There's a speed aspect to this. And people are thinking, well, how did this happen? And there might conspiracy or nothing. There's no conspiracy. The thing that I like...
They tried to kill Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's simple to plain.
Yeah.
It's simple to plain.
The thing I would compare this to is like in football, the receiver knows the route he's going to run, and the DB doesn't. And so the DB's got to mark him no matter where he goes, but he doesn't know what... So the receiver has a huge advantage. He's going to zig before the DB can zag. Okay? So, like, if the shooter has a plan, the cops and the Secret Service...
foiled that.
They are... Yeah, but
in a sense.
In a sense, but they are at the defense's position.
Yeah.
He can move first. He will always be able to move first because he knows he's going to do it, and they don't until he does it.
But that police officer, I feel like, shook him up.
It's enough that it worked because he didn't kill him.
Yeah.
So that cop is the hero.
Yeah.
You know, if you're counting it that way, I don't know. It is a massive security failure, no matter how you cut it. You know, the Secret Service does scope out these things, but they also rely very heavily on disrupting this kind of shit before it happens.
Yeah.
It's not just the return fire aspect or climbing on top of the president to protect him. It is the disrupting this before it happens. This kid appears to be a ghost. There's no social media about him. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people who can speak to his motives or beliefs, so we don't know about that. He also used a very common weapon that was bought something like 11 years ago, which very common ammunition. So, like...
They did say he did purchase a bunch of ammunition the day of.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. But that, again, isn't... We are not living in a place where that would set off a red flag that would get the Secret Service's attention. And especially if he did it one county over, you know, he's just somebody in central Pennsylvania buying a bunch of bullets.
Normal.
Like every other day that ends in Y.
Fucking day at Walmart.
Yeah. It's like, it's no big deal in this country.
I mean, I think the Secret Service, again, I think they'll own it because it happened on their watch.
They have to.
They'll own that, but they'll be like, hey, you know, I think it'll get to the point where it's like guarding President Trump is a lot harder than it is to do anybody else based on like whatever, like, and whatever his requests are. But also too, if we're being honest, the Secret Service has been fucking up for the last
they're 12, not great
14,
at their job.
14 years.
Driving around D.C. drunk, crashing into shit.
Obama at the Brazil shit, like on his administration on that, like when they were
Panama.
Or was it Panama?
Yeah, they were. Well,
I think it was both. Both, right?
They were out with the hookers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
cocaine. I mean, what else are you gonna do in Panama?
Right,
but like, yeah.
They haven't had a great record.
As a DC kid, though, this feels a little weird, right? Because we kind of walk around thinking like, well, yeah, the Secret Service is the hottest shit there is.
And they're always everywhere.
They're always and you know, like you see them or you don't see them or you have some idea where they ought to be.
Massachusetts Avenue, there's thousands of them up there, like.
Yeah, and or you know, you look at a building and you go, oh, that's a little shinier on the top than I remember. Like, you know, we just are used to them being around all the time, and even when they're not supposed to be seen, we know where they're at. I kind of took a little comfort from that, but apparently not.
I just could imagine that their job is very difficult trying to protect Donald Trump.
Yes, I think it's much harder. So you think that when Cheeto goes up to the Hill, she's going to produce an email from the Trump campaign saying, we take your concern under advisement, but we're going to go ahead with it anyway.
Yeah, I think, and it has to be that.
Do you think Trump fires the person who produced that email? Or do you think he turns him into some sort of folk hero and goes like, yeah, we're so tough and we went out there and we knew we could survive this shit.
It really depends.
God's hand was on the email sender.
God, he could, the way he could capture his evangelical base again after taking.
He's already doing.
But after
he's got
taking
Franklin Graham speaking tonight.
Taking the abortion, taking that off of the platform and then you grab them back,
by the pussy. Bring it, you know you want to.
I'm ringing a bell that says "Show me your tits."
Yes.
So it's just
we didn't buy the bell.
bell.
It's left over from the previous regime.
Trump.
Yeah. It's too good. Go ahead. Shout out to Trump down in Florida. Miss you. Yeah. Okay. Hope he fires him. You want some good news?
Yes. We're leaving early.
I don't know about early, but let's do a little good news. So, locally, here in County Fairfax, where I proudly reside, researchers found 11 new grave sites that are believed to have been where various enslaved African Americans were buried. They're at Bull Run Regional Park, which is, if you're from around here, you know it's like a water park, and it's a cool place to go hang out. In 2022, researchers used ground-penetrating radar and found 91 graves belonging to enslaved African Americans at Bull Run Regional Park. This week, researchers found 11 more. So the woman that's been working on this is Crystal Gaskins, and these are people who are related to her, who were on the plantation of Robert Carter III. Robert Carter III is an interesting guy because the story goes that, you know, he was born wealthy and he had...
And there's only way to be born one way wealthy in this country at his time.
Yeah, at his time, back in the 1700s. And he had this giant plantation. He was one of the wealthiest people in the United States, well, in the colonies at the time. And, you know, he knew George Washington and Jefferson, and he was, you know, he's kind of a big shot, right? But he has a religious moment, and he converts. He becomes a Baptist, and very quickly decides that slavery is no good and is anti-Christian, and he doesn't like it. And then he sort of goes further, and he realizes that he's got siblings, half-brothers and sisters, who are enslaved working on his plantation because, as everybody knows, what the plantation owners were up to. So he goes, this is not going to work. And he sets about freeing 500 enslaved people, which is the largest emancipation in the United States territory until the Emancipation Proclamation. And not just freeing them, but like cutting up his plantation and giving it to them, deeding it to them, setting them up to be landowners, wealthy landowners.
Yeah.
These people ended up in really good shape comparatively to the rest of people of that time and,
right.
and that condition. And he, by the time the Civil War happens, all of his former people and all of their descendants are not just free, but they're doing well. So it's a good story, right? Then the descendants of those people that he freed, they were living on the land where Bull Run Park is now. And it's the 60s, and the county is, you know, growing, and they're like, hey, you know, what's up with all of this land? And the families, the Gaskins family and the other families go, you know, we own a lot of land. You won't need a place to put a pool. We want an integrated pool so that our families can play with the kids and the other families or whatever. And County Fairfax goes, you give us the land, you get your pool. And so they deeded them the land. They set up Bull Run Park. They created the water park there. And it was one of the first integrated swimming pools in the Commonwealth. Great story. And now there's 11 more people who had been lost who now get to be included in the registry of this wonderful story. So, I mean, it's not wonderful the way it started.
No, never is in this country.
But
Never is.
there's a redemption story in there.
Yeah.
So good for that. Okay. Let's talk about a couple more things before we got to get out of here. What happened to your team?
My team.
You're the Englishman here.
I'm not an Englishman. I'm British.
Oh, sorry. We won 2 wars not to have to know the difference.
I can't be English. Only white people can be English.
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Well, you're born in England. Doesn't that make you English?
Doesn't know what is I and I don't know if this law has changed.
Is that not how that works?
No, that's why the 14th Amendment here is insane. It's an insane law. Like,
does the rest of the world not work that way?
No.
If you're born in France, you're French.
If I'm born as a non-white person in England, if I'm born in England, I am British. And really, ideally, I'm really more so would take on my wherever the nationality is of like my mom or my grand. Technically, it would be like I'm a Jamaican, really. Like even being born,
but like the reason we say Ted Cruz is bullshit is because he was born in Canada. He doesn't get to be a real American.
I can be a British citizen. I can be a citizen of the United Kingdom.
But Ted Cruz is Canadian because he's born in Canada.
I can't be English,
even if his father is Cuban.
And Applebaum, that one of the reasons I find, and funny enough, I was on the train with her the other day, but it was a long.
You continue not to get us any guests.
I continue. You know what? It was one of those days where it was like you look at someone, you're like, oh, you have had a long day at work, and like I can't even. I can look. Because I've had those days.
Could have got an autograph.
I could have got. Yeah. It wasn't. Sometimes it's not. And also too, like again, like eventually I get some guests, but she succinctly made this point in like Twilight of Democracy where she was just like, as like black people in England, they just can never be English. They'll always be British because again, that concept of being English is being like white. Like,
but what team does Saka play for?
Plays for England.
Right.
He is
so
British.
He's English.
He's not. I don't.
Doesn't play for Scotland. He doesn't play for Wales. He doesn't play for Northern Ireland. He plays for England. So he's English.
He's a British player playing for the England team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Harry Kane English or British?
He's English. This is literally a black and white issue.
This is breaking my brain. I can't get my head around it.
And like they're citizens of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I understand the difference between the UK and England.
Yeah.
England is one of the countries in the UK.
Correct.
But if you're born in England, you are English by definition. You're born there. Where are you born? That is where you are from.
They don't look at it that way.
How can you be from anywhere else?
Yeah, you take on, because again, this whole idea of the nation state.
Okay.
They lost. Like I told everybody.
We'll get back to my stupid Americanism later. But what happened to England in the game?
As I've told many people, it's very interesting that a team, a national team that's always talking about, it has a song about it's coming home.
Bringing football home.
Bring football home. They're always going home with no trophies.
Yeah.
It's very crazy. And people ask me, it's very insane. It's just insane. And people always ask me, like, all right, well, like, right, especially being an Arsenal fan, whether it's Saka, whether it's Declan Rice, whether it's even Ramsdale, right? Like, I have affinity for those players on the team, but, like, it's one of two things that happens. One, England always is going England. They always do it. It's habitual at this point. And in the rare occasion that they win, I will then choose to use my United Kingdom passport as my ID.
English.
Then I'll go out and
that'll
put
be my jersey on.
It'll be my form of ID. I also say, you know what? When the Lions return to England, they'll win. Not at the zoo. When the natural lions.
When natural lions return.
Come to England.
I hate to break it to you.
They never had to.
I don't think they were ever there.
They never were.
I think that's a dumb myth.
It's a very dumb myth.
Yeah.
3 lions.
Yeah, the 3 lions. What I saw was the thing that I'm very used to seeing, which is the defense letting Pickford down, and specifically the goal that Spain scored to win. former Everton great John Stones apparently just stopped paying attention.
Right.
And got beat and was out of position, and that's how they got the shot off. I would say between the Euro and the Copa, there's a lot of former Everton greats who featured very prominently. Jamie Rodriguez, of course, for Colombia, didn't deliver, but played well.
Let's talk about security failures over the weekend.
That was
So
insane. That was insane.
So we're getting to that. We're gonna get to All right. Well, so we're done with Euros. Let's talk about Copa. Argentina won. Right, Messi came out in the second half. He got injured a little bit, and he really wasn't doing all that great. But he gets to go home with this 3 trophies in a row deal, having won the Copa and then the World Cup and then the Copa again. His best friend Damari gets to go home with the love of his country, and the goals that they scored were pretty spectacular. I think Argentina cements their position as the absolute dominance on the world stage and certainly in CONMEBOL. All of that is true. Now, let's get back to this. CONMEBOL sucks at their job. They are the fucking worst, right? So they've had bad camera angles. They've had some of the worst officiating you could possibly imagine. You had the security failure a week ago when they couldn't protect the family of Darwin Nunez, and he had to go beat up the Cafetero fans because they were hucking shit at his family. Initially, of course, I thought it was because he's a Liverpool thug and he's just going into the stands to go fight somebody because fucking Liverpool. But then it turned out no, it was because security failed. And then we get to this venue in Miami.
That is successful at putting on, if that's one thing I'll say about, I don't know, it's not Pro Player anymore, what the hell if it's called? Whatever the fuck it's called.
Hard Rock,
excuse me. And what's the name,
They've hosted a variety of Super Bowls.
What's the fucking owner that's down there, the Miami, not Marlins, of the Dolphins?
I don't know. Dolphin guy?
It's not Jeffrey Lord. No, that's, no. Who is the owner of the Dolphins? Because... because he's a heavy Trump donor, but then he's also supported the whole black justice shit in the NFL. Why am I blanking on his fucking name? But regardless, so that the one thing they have done as a stadium,
Stephen Moss.
Who is it? Stephen Ross?
Yeah, Stephen Ross.
Stephen Ross, right? One thing he has done is that stadium is equipped to do everything from Taylor Swift to F1 and the problem that I heard from this and from the folks out of South Florida is that Copa did the security.
That's exactly right.
Right.
CONMEBOL did the security.
CONMEBOL, yeah, right.
Okay, so Hard Rock Stadium was not using their regular security. CONMEBOL was running the thing. They provided the security. CONMEBOL provided the camera feeds that sucked. CONMEBOL provided all of this other stuff that sucked. Hard Rock has hosted Super Bowls, like you said, Taylor Swift, F1 races. There's also a weekly football game there, Inter Miami. There's so many things that happen there, and they are very capable. I've been to a lot of football games.
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to because I was recently at the women's national game going against Costa Rica. So pretty much it's for something like that of a big, huge international event, there's a lot of heads, and it's very difficult to determine who's the lead head, because in addition to, you can say there's the organizer, which is CONMEBOL and all them, but at the same time you still have to deal with Hard Rock, Stadium. You may have to also deal with whichever network is running it and all that stuff. So really, what I went through this past week with the USA national team, it was kind of okay, what are we doing here? Because really it's you guys got this whatever vision you got going on, and there's the people who've been doing this for a while. That would be me and the crew I work with.
Right.
And then there's TNT, who's also broadcasting, and they got their own agendas. So it's a lot of people there.
So
but
the
not,
same with security as well.
In addition to security, but at least with security here, it's what I saw was the regular security people, in addition to whoever else they did coincide, they'd work together and all that stuff. That was normal. But I think for something as big as this event, and especially with 2 top-tier nations, coming in to play this.
And it's in South Florida, where
and in
both
South
teams
Florida,
have
yes,
huge fan base.
huge fan base. But the
Heavier
thing,
on the
which
Colombians,
is
too.
kind of weird because I've done a lot of international friendlies, and especially like you're in DC for some odd reason, it's been El Salvador's second home.
Well, yeah,
But
You
remember
got
Colombia at what's the name? Colombia at FedEx was insane.
Yes. So pretty much, if you got to think about, let's say, the bigger nations like Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, those guys coming in. Yeah, their fan base is coming in almost like the entire country's coming in here, and
have
you can't
to be
compensate.
better prepared for that. And look, I've been to a lot of stadiums over the years for various games. They're not like easy places to break into.
No,
they're pretty well.
I've never
closed
seen
off.
anybody go through vents.
Somebody watched Die Hard like
yo.
daily.
They were going through vents. Though.
Some man left his wife and was like, "Well,
Yep, I'm going to see this game.
it went away through the vent."
And
He left his wife. He's divorced now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, she's still on the other side of the duck.
A dog was in there.
Yeah. And then people who had tickets couldn't get in.
I heard
because the capacities.
I
had already
heard
been
people
reached.
with tickets at some point weren't even scanning them, and some of them tickets were between $3,000 and $10,000.
Yeah.
Like they weren't scanning them. Like
They're
people
just
when they were
walking in.
coming out were asking, "Hey, can I get a screenshot of your ticket?" Because like obviously some people were like, "Yo, I'm not staying here to the 90th minute."
Right. And then
People were still trying to get in. 83rd minute, yo.
See, World Cup. For some odd reason, I think World Cup has.
This is a
this
stadium
is
that's
the-
supposed
this
to.
is hosting World Cup
it's
games.
it's supposed to host a
We've
World
got
Cup.
2 years to get this right. Now look, FIFA is
Let
not
the Secret
CONMEBOL.
Service do it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Just as long as they keep the perimeter at 150 yards, it'll totally work.
Sorry.
The CONMEBOL is the problem here.
Yes,
FIFA
hands down.
is
Hands down.
running the World Cup, and they'll have a lot more security, and they'll have a lot more support from USA Soccer and some other kind of things like that. But like, we just keep running into this where like soccer governing bodies, let's say, like continue to fail at everything. They're just corrupt as all get out. You know, they've got problems with officiating. They've got problems with sexual harassment and, you know, the Spanish coach kissing players. It's like UEFA has failed countless times at so many other things. CONMEBOL is now legendary for their amount of failure in this Copa. CONCACAF runs essentially a high school league. It's just like there's no good federation that's doing a good job ever. And FIFA is the most corrupt thing on the planet. What are we going to do? We're going to have a World Cup in 2 years where Trump is president after he deported most of the fan base. And what are we going to do?
Like where Mexico's not letting fans come to the letting Americans come to the actual game. Like,
because, you know, it's hosted in 3 countries, right? So it's North America.
Actually, for the next 2 World Cups, it will be in 3 countries.
Yeah, but like this one coming up, it's USA, Canada, and Mexico are hosting together. So like, yeah, and we don't have easy crossing the borders and all that stuff. But
what if they say no border crossings?
What if they don't let Americans?
What if there's a wall up?
What if they build a wall? I don't know. Apparently they built the wall, but the wind blew it over, which is true. Okay, the American League won the All-Star game.
What's new?
Proving once and again that we're better than you. And Ohtani is the truth.
He is the truth.
Oh my God, did he launch that ball?
Harper Soto on the bases as well too. We saw, which was like C.J. Abrams is on there. I mean, you guys, the Orioles have just fucking. I mean, yeah, we had a lot of people there. People on that. I mean, like
even Jordan Westberg got to go for a little while. So
no,
Westberg, Tony Tater, Burns started.
Burns started,
and then of course Gunnar and Rutschman. So like, yeah, we're well represented. It felt pretty good.
I hope so. I still like the All-Star game. I don't know.
I love the All-Star game. It's a lot of fun.
Here's the funny thing is everyone's complaining about the jerseys, and I'm like,
I didn't like them. I'll be honest.
It
didn't bother me.
Yeah, it didn't. That's what I feel. It's like for prior
they
the last
the
few
city
years
connect for the city they're in.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. That was the whole thing he had meant to do, but somehow it just looked.
It
weird.
didn't look right TV at all.
So
no, and like some of the players like who wear their uniforms kind of weird, like Skeens, for example, looked even more ridiculous because it didn't look right. I would say that like the most surprising thing to me of the All-Star game was when they interviewed CC Sabathia, and he is so small. Like, he has lost
He's a
so
lot of
much
You're
weight
right.
from his playing days.
You're right. He definitely
looks
a lot of weight.
so much better, healthier. I mean, I almost didn't recognize him. When they said his name, I heard it, and I was like, that's not CC. And then, then they stick the microphone in his face, and he talks. I'm like, well, it sounds like CC, but sure as shit doesn't look like him. His suit's
It's like when an old lineman leaves the league.
Yeah,
right?
and he
like,
doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to be that bulky.
But I never thought a pitcher had to be that bulky. I know old lineman always had to be that bulky.
Well, go look at the pictures of Sabathia in his pajamas pitching for the Yankees, and what he looks like now, and it's striking. We mentioned, of course, that I'm on drink hiatus, so we can skip that bit. You have any other makeup things that you wanted to go over while we have Brian here for another half an hour?
Whoa, no. No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
Nothing.
Good. You hear that music, which means we've come to the end of the show. We want to say thank you to all of our radio family for being such a good family. It's been a lot of support. Seeing people checking in on each other and stuff. We're holding on to each other for these next few weeks. Thank you to our radio partners, Prime Day, Wine Day, and Mine Day.
You can't participate in Wine Day.
Not right now, no. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, we assume. Maybe, don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for being just that, a family.
Yes.
All right, where can everybody get you on the socials?
You can find me on Instagram at KetchumCordy. You can find me on Hellscape, that is X, that is donating $44 million or $45 million to Donald Trump every fucking
Super PAC. Yep.
Once a month. And there's also, the owner is the biggest defense contractor in this country. Anyways.
And he's going to deorbit the space station.
Oh, yeah.
In 2030 with
He's going to be the lead of NASA if this guy gets elected.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be insane.
He won't take the job.
No, it doesn't pay enough.
No.
Yeah, he's going to get his board to fuck. Anyways, you can find me at that crazy place called X, formerly known as Twitter, at DC Cortez. And you can find me, as always, being a flaming liberal on Blue Sky, being critical of liberalism.
There you go. All right. You can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night, although I think we do have another off week coming up. Not this week, but the week after.
Yeah!
It's the week after. Calm down.
Damn it. All right. I was already in vacation mode. I'm always in vacation mode.
Yeah, we know. You can find us every Thursday night here on Beltway Radio at 9:30. I'm Chip. That's Tez. That's Brian. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Swips.
The caravan of mostly Central American immigrants is now in the Mexican city of Oaxaca.